Every single day, two people wake up with the exact same 24 hours, the same technology, and the same information. Yet 10 years later, one has built a meaningful career and financial stability, while the other is still waiting for life to finally come together. We are often told that the gap between these two people is filled by working harder or sleeping less. But if being busy guaranteed success, the most exhausted people in the world would also be the most accomplished. Many people spend years running faster without ever checking their direction. It is the tragedy of reaching the top of a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. They mistake movement for progress. To avoid that, you need a mechanism to filter your choices. Today, we are building a personalized decision filter, a physical tool to help you stop reacting to the world and start protecting your time. You will need an index card or a digital note, a pen, and your current weekly to-do list. Real progress requires a shift from passive, blind motion to intentional, filtered action. Most people spend their days responding to emails, notifications, and other people's expectations. Without a filter, life becomes something that happens to you, rather than something you create. When an email ruins your mood, there is a small space between what happens to you and how you respond. Inside that space lies your ability to choose. Highly effective people use that gap to decide what the event means to them. Take your index card and write this question at the very top. What can I do next? Having this question in front of you shifts your focus from the problems you can't control to the responsibility you have for your next move. Once you finally take responsibility for your daily direction, you must firmly decide where you are actually going. You wouldn't stay on an airplane if the pilot took off without a destination, yet many people chase promotions and earn money without ever defining what a successful life actually looks like for them. They fill every hour of the day but rarely ask if those hours are building the specific future they want to inhabit. In the middle of your card, write a sentence defining the person you want to become. Describe your version of a successful, stable life. Avoid writing a generic career goal. Focus on a holistic vision that aligns with your values and the relationships you want to maintain. Defining this end state ensures your daily effort is actually moving you toward a wall you actually want to climb. The final part of the card is the filter itself. 3 questions that force every new task to prove it belongs on your schedule. On the bottom half of the card, write Question 1. Will this habit move me closer to the life I want? Write Question 2 right below it. Will this action align with my values? And finally, Question 3. Will today's choices make tomorrow's goals more likely? Look at the to-do list you gathered at the start of this video. Pick one looming task that has been weighing on you. Run that task through these 3 questions. If it fails to align with your defined destination, boldly cross it off your list. When you have clarity on your destination, saying no stops being an emotional struggle and becomes an objective way to protect your future. You've just turned a set of abstract ideas into a physical operating system for your day. Place this card where you will see it constantly. Tape it to your monitor or use it as a bookmark. Let it be the first thing you look at before you open your inbox. Effectiveness isn't about the volume of tasks you complete. It is about the consistency of doing what matters. By ruthlessly prioritizing these filters, you stop reacting to the demands of others and begin intentionally directing your own life. Think about a specific memory, the last time someone truly listened to you. No waiting for their turn to speak, no interrupting, just giving you their complete, silent, and unbroken attention. When you experience that, the impact is internal. You feel respected. You feel valued and understood. But we have to face the reality that genuine listening is exceptionally rare in our daily lives. Most of what we call conversations aren't actually conversations at all. They're usually just 2 people taking turns, waiting for their opportunity to talk. Our default setting is driven by ego. We enter interactions with a singular goal, proving a point or scrambling to formulate a clever rebuttal. This shows a cognitive bottleneck. Human attention is strictly limited. When you use processing capacity to formulate a response, you block your ability to absorb information. Your own assumptions fill that mental space. Consequently, the incoming information deflects away. As long as your primary goal is figuring out what you are going to say next, true communication remains out of reach. Highly effective people break this cycle by shifting their objective. They deliberately drop the need to win the interaction. They adopt a new primary goal, seeking deep understanding before they ever seek agreement. This requires a massive shift in your internal state. You have to move away from a posture of ego-driven defense and toward a state of active, genuine curiosity. Real communication begins at the exact moment that your curiosity replaces your assumptions. This pivot creates a collaborative process of discovery, replacing the friction of a competitive zero-sum game. To apply this, you have to catch your own brain in the exact moment it starts drafting a premature reply. The solution is to force a cognitive interruption. You have to hit pause in your mind while the other person is still speaking. In that silent pause, you swap out your internal prompt. Instead of asking, "How do I respond?" you ask, "What am I missing?" Asking, "What am I missing?" forces your brain to dismantle its preconceived assumptions. It pulls your attention away from your own thoughts and directs it entirely towards the speaker. Utilizing this single, silent question is the mechanism that separates superficial hearing from the art of deep listening. When a speaker realizes you aren't preparing a rebuttal, their physiological need to defend their position begins to dissipate. You will often see them physically relax as the perceived threat of the argument vanishes. Because both parties are no longer in the defensive posture, interpersonal conflicts and complex problems become easier to navigate and resolve. This chart shows how trust and influence compound over time. Each consistent listening interaction builds upon the last, resulting in an exponential upward curve. You will notice a shift in how others treat you. People naturally stop working against you and begin looking for ways to work with you. There is a common misconception that staying quiet and listening is a form of yielding power or a sign of weakness. In reality, deep listening is an active, intentional, and powerful leadership skill. People rarely care about your knowledge or your vision until they believe you understand them. Only then does the door to real, lasting influence open.
Today, we're going to completely dismantle one of the most pervasive myths out there about achievement, and we're building a highly practical framework for mutual, lasting success. You know, if you've ever felt like your progress means someone else has to take a back seat, well, you're absolutely in the right place to hit reset on that mindset. We are focusing on how to architect success that actually grows the more you share it. So let's dive right into this by challenging something we are taught from a remarkably early age. It's this idea that if someone else wins, we somehow lose, right? We're subtly conditioned to believe that life is just a zero-sum game. Like more money for them literally means less for us, or, more recognition for a colleague means fewer opportunities for ourselves. But as we're going to see in the source material today, this assumption quietly and dangerously shapes the way we build our relationships and our careers. Okay, here is our workshop agenda for today. We're tackling the myth of competition, developing a partnership mindset, examining the currency of character, applying continuous learning, and finally, making that transformation permanent. We're moving step by step from unlearning those old defensive habits straight into building a daily lifestyle of continuous permanent growth.
All right, Module 1, the myth of competition. We're breaking the zero-sum illusion.
When we operate under the zero-sum illusion, that false belief I just mentioned, where more success for others automatically drains the opportunity pool for us, we get defensive. We get protective, and honestly a bit suspicious. We start treating every single interaction like a contest that has to be won. But highly effective people, they flip this entirely. They are actively looking to create value together and help everyone around them become better. They know for sure that the greatest opportunities are rarely created all by yourself. Moving right along to Module 2, the partnership mindset. This is the collaboration multiplier.
To really understand this collaboration multiplier, let's try a quick team collaboration exercise. I want you to think about your current team like two incredibly talented musicians on a stage. If each person is operating with a competitive mindset, just insisting on playing louder than the other to show off their skills, what happens? Well, the audience just hears a wall of noise. It's chaotic, it's unhelpful. But when they listen, when they adapt and complement each other's strengths, they create a beautiful piece of music that neither of them could have possibly produced alone. Life and work operate the exact same way.
So ultimately, the crucial point here is that instead of asking how they alone can win, successful people operate on this single transformative question. They ask,
How can we both win? This one question searches for mutual value, and it instantly upgrades the dynamic of absolutely any room you walk into. It forces you to look past your own immediate needs and consider the whole ecosystem.
This changes our default reactions completely. Look at this. Under the old approach, negotiations are just win or loss demands, and disagreements are purely conflict. Total headache, right? But with the partnership approach, negotiations become collaborative partnerships. Disagreements transform into actual opportunities to discover new value. Now, this doesn't mean you just roll over and accept every demand. It means you search for solutions where everyone gains. Approaching situations with this intention builds trust, and trust opens doors that force and aggression never ever can.
Module 3. The currency of character. Building invisible assets.
This mutual respect we've been talking about builds into a highly valuable, albeit invisible asset. And that is your compounding reputation. We almost always think of assets as, money in the bank or property. But in the architecture of success, your character is actually your primary currency. Every single time you engage in an honest interaction, every promise you keep, every fair decision you make, and every time you choose integrity over convenience, you are building compounding credibility. Listen, money can disappear. Skills can, and honestly will, become outdated as markets shift. But a reputation for honesty, reliability, and fairness, that creates a continuous stream of opportunities for years to come.
I absolutely love this next point. Charisma is fantastic for a first impression. It gets you in the room, maybe even gets you a free coffee. But your character, your compounding credibility, is the only thing that determines if you're invited to stay in that room for the long haul. People remembering how you made them feel will always outlast initial charm.
On to Module 4, Applied Continuous Learning, Adapting Beyond the Classroom.
Okay, here is a hard truth. The absolute moment you believe you know everything, your growth stops cold. Done. The world simply changes way too quickly for yesterday's knowledge to guarantee tomorrow's success. And continuous learning doesn't just happen sitting in a classroom. It happens through books, having meaningful conversations, getting direct experience, embracing failure, and careful observation. Literally every person you meet knows something you don't. Utilizing all these channels keeps your mind flexible, and a flexible mind solves problems infinitely better than a rigid one stuck in the past.
But how does this actually translate into real action? Because learning without application is basically just intellectual entertainment. Highly effective people don't just collect information like trophies on a shelf. Reading 10 books means absolutely very little if you change nothing about how you live or work. Knowledge only becomes powerful when it changes your behavior. Practicing just one lesson consistently is vastly more valuable than 100 lessons read and quickly forgotten.
To really lock this in, let's use a real-life growth analogy. Personal development is exactly like planting a garden. Step 1, buying packets of seeds. Well, that isn't enough. Step 2, reading a huge stack of books about gardening. Still not enough. Even Step 3, drawing up the plans for the perfect garden, won't yield a single flower. True growth only happens at Step 4, when those seeds are actually planted in the dirt and cared for consistently, day after day. Ideas only become valuable when they're lived, not just understood.
And our final module, Module 5, Making Transformation Permanent. This is about the daily lifestyle.
We really want this growth to shift from being just an occasional, motivational event to your permanent daily lifestyle. Let's do a quick reframing exercise for your everyday workday. When you apply these habits, challenges stop feeling like massive roadblocks, and they become incredible practice opportunities for you and your team. Instead of a disagreement ruining your Tuesday, it's now an opportunity to communicate better. A setback isn't a failure, it's a chance to become more resilient. A difficult decision is no longer a source of dread, it's literally the exact gym where you strengthen your character.
The ultimate takeaway of our explainer today is this. When you internalize this partnership mindset, build your character, apply what you learn, and reframe your daily challenges, a massive paradigm shift occurs. You stop desperately chasing success. Instead, you start naturally radiating it because you've become the kind of person who inherently creates it wherever you go.
Yet, even with all these incredible habits in place, we really have to ask a very real question. What happens when exhaustion inevitably sets in and burnout begins to replace your sense of purpose? Because no matter how effective you are, you're still human, right? Energy is finite.
The most effective people in the world don't just know when to work, collaborate, and learn. They also know exactly when to stop and renew themselves.
This is the final, often unrevealed secret that quietly supports all the other architecture we've built today. Without renewal, all the other habits eventually just collapse. So as you step out of this workshop and return to your team, ask yourself, are you relentlessly grinding your gears until they break? Or are you actually building in the time to renew the single most important asset that makes mutual success possible? Yourself. Take that thought with you and start building.
You know, that feeling when you've poured your absolute heart and soul into achieving a massive goal, only to cross the finish line and feel, well, entirely empty? It's crazy, but it's a surprisingly common experience. We grind, we push, we achieve, and yet, instead of feeling fulfilled, we just feel totally exhausted. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, I am really thrilled to walk you through a fascinating breakdown of how we actually build lasting, meaningful achievement. We're going to look closely at the architecture of sustainable success, and we'll be focusing specifically on the daily habits that fortify our body, mind, emotions, and character.
Okay, let's dive right into this blueprint. Here's what we're covering today. First, the myth of overworking. Second, the principle of renewal. Third, daily habits for your body and mind. Fourth, daily habits for your emotions and character. And finally, number 5, the pilot's path to balance.
All right, starting right off with section 1, the myth of overworking. So, society absolutely loves to peddle this idea that success belongs to whoever clocks the most hours. You know the drill, the hustle myth. Wake up at 4 a.m., sleep less, stay relentlessly busy, and just repeat until you make it. And honestly, at first, it kind of seems effective. You might even knock out more tasks initially. But eventually, reality hits hard. Your focus weakens, your creativity just completely fades, and the work that once felt so deeply meaningful starts feeling incredibly heavy. And the source material makes such a vital distinction here. This doesn't happen because you've suddenly become lazy. No way. It happens because you're operating in a way that totally defies human nature.
Which brings us perfectly to section 2, the principle of renewal.
To really grasp this, let's look at 3 super vivid metaphors drawn directly from the text. First, think about a professional athlete. They don't train every single hour of the day. Fun fact, muscle isn't actually built when you're lifting weights in the gym. It's built during the recovery period afterward. Second, a farmer doesn't harvest the exact same field every single week, right? The soil absolutely needs time to rest and regenerate its nutrients. And third, even the strongest, most resilient industrial machines out there require scheduled maintenance, or they literally just break down. Yet somehow, we expect our own minds to perform at peak capacity every single day without rest. Let's be real, that isn't discipline. It's just completely unsustainable.
So, the crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote. Everything that performs at a high level requires renewal. Highly effective people inherently understand that taking time to renew isn't a distraction from the work. It is an active, essential part of the work itself. This is the absolute foundational truth of high performance.
Now, to put this principle into practice, we need to look at 4 foundational pillars that quietly shape every single day of your life. This breakdown shows exactly what happens when we ignore them. If you ignore your body, poor health just steals the energy you need to execute your goals. If you ignore your mind, a restless mind destroys your focus. Ignore your emotions, and weak relationships will spike your daily stress. And if you ignore your character, operating against your values creates this draining inner conflict. The huge takeaway here is interconnectedness. It's like a giant puzzle. If even one of these pieces begins to break down, everything else becomes exponentially harder. Real effectiveness means intentionally growing all 4 areas together.
Moving right along to section 3, daily habits for body and mind.
Let's tackle the physical foundation first. When we talk about habits for sustainable success, you don't need to adopt some extreme, punishing fitness routine. You don't need to start training for an Ironman today. What you actually need is consistency, a daily walk, getting in some strength training, prioritizing quality sleep, eating nutritious food. It's rhythmic, it's punchy, and best of all, it's entirely accessible. We're not talking about vanity metrics here. These simple, consistent habits literally give your brain the chemical energy it needs to make better decisions all day long.
Next comes your mind, and wow, our modern world heavily incentivizes constant consumption. We are literally bombarded with videos, headlines, and opinions, which keeps us in this exhausting state of perpetually reacting. But your mind doesn't grow in that environment, it grows through mindful reflection. That means actually setting aside time to just think. It means reading books that challenge your current perspective and learning skills that improve your future. We really have to realize that knowledge only becomes wisdom when we intentionally slow down long enough to understand it.
Okay, let's jump into section 4, daily habits for emotions and character.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how it boldly redefines what it means to be emotionally strong. So many of us mistake emotional strength for stoicism, or just bearing our feelings entirely. But the source material corrects this beautifully. Real emotional strength is the ability to thoroughly understand your emotions without allowing them to dictate your actions. It's all about mastery, not suppression. So how do we build that mastery? It comes down to actionable daily steps, especially when things get heated. Step 1. When you feel frustrated, literally force a pause before you react. Step 2. When anger flares up, intentionally choose your words carefully rather than just lashing out. And step 3, when you're deeply discouraged, actively remind yourself that temporary emotions do not define permanent reality. Practicing these steps creates true emotional maturity. That maturity creates stronger relationships, and those relationships build a significantly stronger life.
Finally, we have to protect our character. And character is built in the quiet moments through daily habits. Keep your promises. Freely admit your mistakes when you mess up. Treat people with total respect, especially when you have absolutely nothing to gain from them. And choose integrity even when taking a shortcut seems so much easier. Remember, your reputation isn't built by what you loudly proclaim in a meeting, it's built quietly by what you repeatedly do. And the profound payoff here is that once people truly trust your character, opportunities naturally begin finding you.
Bringing us to our final macro view, Section 5, the pilot's path to balance.
I want to pause here and deliver a pretty sobering reality check. Success without balance eventually becomes another form of failure. One of the greatest traps in our culture is believing that achievement alone creates happiness. It just doesn't. True effectiveness means succeeding without sacrificing the things that actually matter most. It means building your career without losing your family, growing your income without destroying your health. It makes chasing massive ambition but never compromising your values along the way.
Achieving that balance isn't some one-time event where you just check a box and declare, hey, I'm balanced. It requires continuous, intentional effort. I absolutely love this metaphor from the source. Just like a pilot constantly makes small corrections during a flight, your life requires the same attention. A plane doesn't just fly perfectly straight to its destination. It is constantly course-correcting against the wind and the weather. Your life demands those exact same small, repeated adjustments to stay on track.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when your foundation gets strong across all 4 pillars. Success actually starts feeling less stressful, not because life magically gets easier, but because you change. You stop depending on fleeting motivation, and you start trusting your built-in systems. You stop frantically reacting to every single problem, and you start responding with calm clarity. You stop chasing external approval, and you start living firmly by your own principles. Because when your internal principles are stronger than your external circumstances, there's very little in this world that can shake you.
So what does this all mean for us? This brings us to the final lesson that ties every single habit together. True, sustainable success isn't just about hitting a target. It is entirely about the person you become in the process. So I want to leave you with this final provocative question to think about today. How will you build a life that continues growing long after your immediate goals have been reached? Focus on those daily habits, nurture your body, mind, emotions, and character, and the architecture of your success will absolutely stand the test of time. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I encourage you to start making those small pilot's corrections today.
Welcome to this explainer, where we're taking a deep dive into the architecture of character, building a purposeful future. Now, usually when we talk about long-term success, we're looking at, spreadsheets, career trajectories, maybe 5-year financial plans. But today we're totally flipping that script. We're going to look at some really fascinating source material that focuses on reverse engineering long-term success by actually building your internal character. It's basically about designing the architect before you ever try to build the house. Okay, let's dive into this. Who do you want to be in 10 years? And I want you to completely bypass the standard metrics for just a second. Put aside the car you want to drive, the cash in your bank account, or that fancy title on your resume. I want you to really deeply visualize the actual person you want to become a decade from now. What does it actually feel like to be in your own skin? How do other people feel when they're around you? As this slide brilliantly illustrates, there's a pretty stark contrast between 2 very different paths in life. On one hand, we've got the standard metrics of success, right? Money, titles, those shiny external achievements, the stuff society constantly tells us to chase. But on the flip side, we have core character traits, things like dependability, integrity, calmness under pressure, trustworthiness. Look, chasing the superficial stuff might get you a fleeting moment of applause, but doing the foundational and honestly often unglamorous work of building character, that is what actually makes you someone others can truly depend on. So how do we actually get there? Well, the source material offers this beautifully profound thought. Ordinary days lived with extraordinary intention. And man, this is such a powerful shift in perspective. That future, rock-solid version of you, it isn't born from one sudden, cinematic, extraordinary moment. It's not some lightning strike of success. Actually, it's forged from these quiet, super intentional daily choices that just slowly transform who you are. The magic isn't in the milestone, it's literally in the mundane. Let's break down exactly what those intentional choices look like. Here's a framework of 5 core habits derived straight from the source. Number 1, responsibility. This is that exact moment you just stop blaming circumstances and start owning your choices. Number 2, vision. Because let's face it, even a hardest work can lead you to the total wrong destination if you don't know where you're going. Number 3, priorities. Protecting what actually matters instead of trying to do, well, everything. Number 4, relationships. Listening, building trust, creating solutions where everyone wins. And finally, number 5, continuous renewal. Keeping your mind, body, and character sharp. Now, none of these offer a magic shortcut. No way. But if you apply them, they systematically transform the person who is creating the results. And here's where it gets really cool. How do these habits actually strengthen each other? They build into this unstoppable engine. Responsibility gives absolute direction to your vision. Once you have that vision, it immediately shapes your daily priorities. Those priorities then dictate how you handle your relationships. And those healthy relationships, they inevitably create new, incredible opportunities. As you engage in continuous growth, it restarts this entire cycle at a higher, more evolved level. It's a continuous loop of compounding growth. These habits absolutely do not exist in isolation. They feed into each other. But of course, there is an ultimate antagonist in our narrative here, and that is complacency. The source defines this as the exact moment you believe there is nothing left to learn, causing growth to just quietly, silently stop. It is the absolute greatest danger to success. It doesn't happen with some dramatic explosion. It happens the very second you stop being a student. The moment you think you've arrived, well, you've actually started to decline. So, what do? How do we fight off this antagonist? Here is the antidote. Truly effective people rely on 4 specific traits to combat complacency and refine the person they are becoming. First, they stay humble enough to improve, always knowing they can be better. Second, they're confident enough to act. They don't let that humility paralyze them. Third, they remain wise enough to listen, valuing other perspectives way over their own ego. And fourth, they stay disciplined enough to continue even when progress is totally invisible. And that last one, that is huge. Growth often happens deep underground before it ever breaks the surface, and discipline is what keeps you watering the soil. Which brings us to a really crucial map of how success is actually reverse engineered. Step 1, habits create character. Basically, what you do repeatedly becomes who you are. Step 2, character shapes decisions. When you're a person of deep integrity, you don't even have to debate doing the right thing. Your character just makes the decision for you. And step 3, decisions determine your future. So the future you're hoping for isn't built someday. It is being systematically, block by block, built today, through every single conversation, every morning routine, and every difficult choice you make when absolutely no one else is watching. Now, if you're looking at all this and thinking, wow, okay, I have a mountain of work to do, just take a breath. Small, consistent improvements will always outperform dramatic changes that never last. You definitely do not need to master everything on this list overnight. In fact, trying to do that is just a recipe for burnout. Just pick one habit, literally just one. Practice it until it becomes a fundamental part of you, as natural as breathing. Then, and only then, build the next one. But what happens on the days you lose focus or make mistakes? Because let's be honest with ourselves here, those days are absolutely coming. You're gonna snap at a coworker, you're gonna hit snooze on your alarm, you're gonna drop the ball. It happens. It's incredibly important to realize that setbacks and bad days aren't just possible, they're an inevitable, totally baked in part of the process. You're human. The goal isn't to never fall down. So, the crucial point is this. Measure yourself by your willingness to return to your principles and standards. Don't measure yourself by the one bad day. Measure yourself by the bounce back. Real effectiveness isn't about achieving some impossible standard of perfection. It's about consistency. It's about being guided by purpose and having the sheer willingness to dust yourself off and return to the person you are actively choosing to become. You know, when we look at highly successful people, we often just assume they were born that way, right? Naturally confident, naturally disciplined. But what we don't see are the invisible decisions. Think of, say, a manager receiving a highly critical, super unfair email and consciously choosing to step away from their desk for 5 minutes instead of firing back defensively. That is an invisible decision. We don't see the mornings they chose growth over the comfort of a warm bed. We miss the lucrative opportunities they declined simply to protect what truly mattered. And we definitely don't see the habits they repeated long after the initial excitement completely disappeared. These quiet, unseen choices are the actual raw materials that create extraordinary lives. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive paradigm shift. Stop asking yourself, how can I become more successful? Honestly, that's just the wrong question. It focuses entirely on external results. Instead, challenge yourself right now with this single, incredibly powerful question: what kind of person do I need to become? Because if you focus your energy entirely on answering that, the external metrics, they'll just take care of themselves. Which brings us to our final provocative thought from the source material. When you become the right person, success stops feeling like something you chase. It becomes something you naturally create. The quality of your future will never be determined by one massive, dramatic decision. It will always be shaped by the small choices you repeat every single day. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this question to really ponder. What is one small, invisible decision you can make today that the future version of you will be profoundly thankful for? Make